Well, as I understand it, he was born on a property called Marinya at Cambuya, which is just outside Toowoomba. And that's where his father had a Corriedale and Ayrshire stud with his wife Ruth. That's where they lived and lived a happy country life. Obviously had a very happy country upbringing. The lessons he learnt from his grandfather and his father in business, I think, were that you had to be true to yourself in whatever you did, and the fact that he was also a very good Christian. The whole family were very good Christians, and that's just been passed down through the generations. Philanthropy in the family was something that, as I've always said, was served up with the porridge at breakfast. It was always there. It certainly wasn't in the face, but it was certainly discussed and was something to enjoy. And I think it became part of the family discussion as we grew up as children. Part of our inheritance was to be philanthropic. Vincent was a leader. When I say he was a leader, he was a silent leader, being a voice to reckon with. Normally his leadership qualities were at a board meeting where he wouldn't say very much, but when he did say something, you'd sit up and listen to it. And the legacy he really wanted to leave behind was ethics in leadership. He'd been through the Christopher Skases, the Alan Bonds, and he didn't like that at all, and he just thought we had to build a better society. And that was when we created the fellowships in combination with the St James Ethics Centre in Sydney. As a leader, he did have a high resolve, but he, as I said before, he was a silent leader. But when he saw a principle, he would stick to his guns and make sure that that principle was adhered to. He was a conservative person, but and certainly in the Sydney Morning Herald, he would be the steadfast person that would hold everything together. Now, he would get very concerned because he saw the paper going a bit to the left, and he would be that individual that made sure that it stayed independent. He did other things besides the Herald. He was asked to be a director of what was then the Bank of New South Wales. His cousin, Sir Warwick, and Rupert Henderson, who was the managing director, then asked him to resign because they saw it as a conflict of interest because of the editorial rights of the paper and the fact that he was a director of the Bank of New South Wales. They also asked him to sell his shares, which he refused to. But that was devastating for my father to leave that company. He rejoined it again 3 years later when it became a public company. But he certainly did not enjoy being turfed off the board. He was a young man who'd just done an MBA at Harvard, came back to Australia and virtually took over the paper overnight. What Warwick did in some ways, the implication was that it allowed my brother and I to purchase some of the assets and to grow, one of them being Rural Press, to grow that into a fantastic business. And of course then to sell it back into the Herald. Yeah, I mean the takeover and the debt it created to the newspaper itself, it had a huge impact on the family. What had happened was shocking. But yeah, of course it's history, and the paper went belly up. Yes, my father was chairman of AMP for 16 years and was instrumental in establishing Stanbroke Pastoral Company. They built up what is now known as, what was known as Stanbroke Pastoral Company, and I think was something like 22 properties and 750,000 head of cattle, which in today's terms is huge. I'd say his role as chairman of AMP, and certainly his role as chairman of Stanbroke Pastoral Company, his role as a director of John Fairfax, and also his role as a director of the Bank of New South Wales. But of course the Boy Scouts played a big part in his life, and when I was a child he would spend most weekends playing Boy Scouts. Not only was he Commissioner for New South Wales Boy Scouts, but he became Australian Commissioner for Boy Scouts. The Vincent Fairfax Family Foundation has given, since its inception, over $100 million, and that is continuing today. His views on material wealth were that you didn't need a lot in life. If you had the surplus of whatever it was, then you had a responsibility to give that away. At the Church of England Boys' School in 1969, at the speech day, he said that he was a Queenslander and believed in still being a Queenslander. So he really held those values dear to his heart. He really believed that his roots still belonged in Queensland.